Vince Gilligan rightfully has been given a ton of credit for creating the incredible world of Breaking Bad. But today I want to spend some time taking a look at perhaps the most underrated character of the Breaking Bad verse, and that's Howard Hamlin. Now, Howard is a really fascinating character to me because he's initially presented as a bit unlikable. He's kind of the prototypical uptight lawyer with the stick up his ass. Jimmy sees Howard as someone who tried to stifle his career as a lawyer, and Kim sees him as someone who unrightfully stuck her in doc review multiple times. And through their animosity towards Howard, us as viewers sort of take on the same animosity towards him. I know that upon first watch I disliked Howard quite a bit, at least early into Better Call Saul. He just came off as plastic and fake, if you will. But we start to get a glimpse behind Howard's mask when it's revealed that Chuck was really the one trying to block Jimmy from joining HHM on the Sandpiper case. Initially, we as viewers see this as a political chess move made by Howard to keep Jimmy from becoming his equal. But in reality, I'd actually argue that Howard was being a good friend to Chuck in this moment. A far better friend than Chuck deserved even. You see, Howard knew that Jimmy would react negatively to this news and that he'd take all the blame for it. And instead of throwing Chuck under the bus, he allowed Chuck to pretend to be outraged and save face with Jimmy. And at least to me, this kind of showed that Howard wasn't just some robotic lawyer with no feelings or emotions. He was simply trying to cover for his friend and business partner, and spare Jimmy from the pain of knowing that his own brother didn't believe he was a real lawyer. Now, the title of this video states that Howard Hamlin is Vince Gilligan's most tragic character, and you might be thinking to yourself that thus far I'm really laying out an argument for Howard being the most misunderstood, but in my eyes these two things go hand in hand, because I think Jimmy and Kim unrightfully paint and view Howard as some massive villain that he really isn't. And while the shenanigans they pull to get Howard to crash out during the Sandpiper settlement hearing are fun to see unfold, when you really think about it, they're kind of just being assholes, and they aren't really taking how this will affect Howard into account. You see, the reason they're doing all of this is simply just so they can get Jimmy's settlement money sooner. Kim desperately wants to start her own practice and wants that money. And while I understand this desire from Kim, and I'm not saying Howard wasn't a bit dickish towards her in numerous moments throughout the series, but her refusal to wait a little while longer for the Sandpiper case to settle under normal circumstances, which would have resulted in more money for her and Jimmy anyways, ultimately leads to Howard's life completely falling apart and his ultimate death. And yes, while she couldn't have possibly known that sabotaging Howard would lead to Lalo shooting him in the head, Kim and Jimmy never stopped for a minute to think of Howard as a human being and what this would do to him mentally. They simply saw him as an evil corporate lawyer and didn't care how it would impact him. And the tragic part of all of this to me is that Howard, despite his errors in handling his relationship with both Kim and Jimmy, did attempt to make things right in his own way. He offered to pay off the rest of Kim's school debt even after she left the company, and he tried to make things straight with Jimmy by stepping into the boxing ring with him so Jimmy could let out some steam on him. Howard even offered Jimmy a job at HHM. I mean, the man tried to mend the bridge in my opinion. The fact that Jimmy and Kim weren't willing to cross the bridge is fine and their choice, but why punish the guy for trying? I rewatched all of Better Call Saul a few months ago, and the moment I was most excited about getting to revisit was when Lalo shows up at Jimmy and Kim's apartment during the episode Plan and Execution. I remember that just being such an intense scene. But upon my rewatch, what stood out to me even more was just how badly I felt for Howard. Unbeknownst to Jimmy and Kim, his entire personal life was falling apart. He'd been dealing with debt, depression, the collapse of his marriage. To Howard, this was him being kicked while he was down and on the ground already. And more than anything, he just wants to know why. Why Jimmy and Kim decided to try to burn him to the ground. And in a truly powerful scene, he says the following. What justification makes it okay? Howard's such an asshole that he deserves it? So what is it? I sided with Chuck too often? I took away your office and put you in doc review? All of the above? Howard's daddy helped him get to the top, but you both had to struggle? What allows you to do this to me? The dialogue I just paraphrased hit me so hard because it revealed that at the end of the day, Howard is just a hurt man. And he just doesn't understand why these two people decided to ruin him in such a brutal way. And the most tragic aspect of this scene was that when Lalo showed up, and it was clear that he was there to cause harm to Jimmy and Kim, Howard tried to de-escalate the situation. I mean, these two people just ruthlessly plotted Howard's professional demise for months on end. He had every right to hate them and not care what happened to them. But when push came to shove and he saw Lalo putting a silencer on his gun, he tried to talk Lalo down. He still tried to protect Kim and Jimmy. And when someone is facing death, I think you see the truest version of that person. And Howard showed compassion and care for two people who showed him nothing but hate. In his final moments, we saw the true Howard Hamlin, and he simply didn't deserve any of this. And that is precisely why I view Howard as such a tragic character. Well, if you made it this far, I'd love to hear your thoughts on Howard Hamlin. Do you find him to be a likable character? Do you find his untimely demise to be tragic? Or did you perhaps just never like the guy? I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please feel free to drop a like and subscribe for more Screen Stories content. I'll have a link to a playlist with all of my Breaking Bad themed videos in the description. Until next time, peace.